Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. I want to ask you something real tonight. Have you ever looked into her eyes and seen that she's still somewhere else, that even if she smiles, even if she says she's fine, you can feel the weight of what she hasn't let go? It's not always loud, it's not always dramatic, but it's there in the silence, in the tension between moments, in the way she talks about the past like it still owns her. She can't move on, not because she doesn't want to, but because something inside her is still open, still unfinished, still searching, and maybe you're the man trying to understand why. Maybe you're the one she left but somehow never really left behind. Or maybe you're the one standing in front of her now, sensing that her body is here, but her soul, her heart, they haven't arrived yet. This video isn't about blame, it's about truth, because what holds a woman back isn't always what you think. It's not just love, it's not just memory, it's the emotional contract that was broken or never fully written. So if you're ready to finally understand what's really going on in her, and maybe in you too, let's begin. Let's talk about why she can't move on. It often begins so quietly, a glance at an old photo, a song that plays on the radio and changes the air in the room. She stiffens, looks away, her breath shortens for a moment. You don't know what just happened, but something did. And even if it's been months or years, even if she's the one who walked away, the truth settles slowly in your chest. She's still holding on. Now we often think of heartbreak as dramatic, tears, calls, angry texts, but that's not always what staying stuck looks like. Sometimes it's just stillness and emotional freeze. A woman who has moved forward in every visible way, her job, her social life, her relationships, but emotionally, she's standing in a place only she can see. And for many men watching this, it's confusing because you want to understand. You're either the man she left behind and you're asking yourself, why does she keep reaching out if she's over me? Or you're the man by her side now and you're wondering, why does it feel like her heart never really landed here? She can't move on, but not because she's weak, not because she's manipulative, but because something is still unresolved. Something wasn't said, or it was said, but not received, and the feminine heart, when it loves deeply, it doesn't simply shut off. It lingers, it loops, it tries to make meaning out of chaos. For some women, what's holding them back is not the person, it's who they became in that relationship. Or who they lost. You see, we don't just mourn people, we mourn the version of ourselves we became when we were with them. The way we laughed, the way we loved without holding back, the belief we had in love before it was disappointed. She may not even want the man back, but she misses the woman she was with him. And sometimes moving on feels like leaving that version of herself behind forever. Then there's the grief of the unspoken, the unclosed loop, the apology that never came, the questions that were never answered. And in the absence of clarity, she creates stories, she replays conversations, she rewrites endings in her head. Because without closure, the mind becomes a movie theater stuck on loop. She can't stop watching it. She wants to understand what happened to her, not just the breakup, but the transformation that followed. And men, this is something you need to hear with your whole body. A woman doesn't need to be in love with you to be wounded by you. Sometimes what she can't move on from isn't you, it's how she lost herself trying to keep you, or trying to decode you, or trying to be enough for a version of you that never knew how to hold her. So now, she's stuck in that space between letting go and being free, between healing and pretending. She dates, maybe even laughs, but a part of her feels frozen in the past. Not because she wants to return to it, but because she hasn't found the meaning yet, and for women meaning is everything. Without meaning, pain becomes permanent, and so she searches, in memories, in dreams, in the arms of others, for something to help her put the pieces together. And then there's the shame, because society expects women to get over it quickly, to bounce back, to glow up, to move on and not be dramatic. But the truth is, many women internalize heartbreak. They don't always talk about it. They don't always cry to friends. Instead, they become quiet, overthink, blame themselves. They begin to wonder, was I too much? Was I not enough? Did he ever even love me? And in that spiral, she doesn't just lose the relationship, she loses trust. In love, in men, in herself, you might see her smiling, posting pictures, dating someone new, but don't let the surface fool you. Many women are experts in pretending they've moved on when they haven't, because vulnerability has often cost them too much. Because the last time they opened their heart, they weren't just let down, they were shattered, and so now she performs okay, but inside she's still living with echoes. And if you're the man she's with now, you can probably feel it, that distance, that guardedness, that moment when you offer her tenderness and she flinches. It's not you, it's not rejection, it's residue. She's still healing. She's still wondering if this is another chapter of loss. Or finally, a safe space to exhale. That's why understanding is so powerful, because you can't fix her. But you can see her, and when a woman feels seen not as a girlfriend, not as a body, not as a role, but as a soul, something begins to soften. This is where we begin to understand the real reason why she hasn't moved on. Because it's not about you, and it's not even about him. It's about what her heart still doesn't understand. And once we step into that space, everything changes. You see, emotional memory isn't like intellectual memory. It doesn't follow logic, and it certainly doesn't obey timelines. Emotional memory is stored in the body, in the nervous system, in the breath, in the way she tenses up when someone raises their voice, even if it's not yelling at her. You might think she's over it because she's not talking about it anymore. But trauma, disappointment, abandonment, they don't always announce themselves in words. Sometimes they whisper in behaviors, in distance, in how she apologizes for needing love, in how she doesn't ask for more because once she did and it cost her everything. Many women stay emotionally stuck because their nervous systems were rewired by pain. It's not just the heartbreak, it's the feeling of being emotionally unsafe, of caring deeply and being met with silence, of giving and being told it was too much, of needing honesty and receiving confusion. When that happens, something in her rewrites its understanding of love. Love begins to feel like a risk, like something that starts sweet but always ends in sorrow. So instead of leaning into the new, she carries the habits of the past into the present. She loves halfway, she hesitates, she doesn't celebrate tenderness, she waits for it to disappear. And this is where many men get confused. They think she's cold, disinterested, or playing games, but what you're seeing isn't manipulation, it's protection. It's the armor she built after years of not being chosen, not being heard, not being held, and yes, she's tired of wearing it. She wants to take it off, but to remove the armor, she has to know the battlefield is gone. She has to believe she's not going to bleed again. Some women can't move on because they never truly had space to grieve, not emotionally, not spiritually. They jumped into survival, they got busy, they took care of others, and in that speed the heartbreak never finished its cycle. It just stayed there, dormant, waiting, and now, in the quiet moments, it rises like a ghost. Grief has its own timeline, and most of us don't get the luxury of honoring it. So we bury it, but buried emotions don't die, they simply find new ways to speak, through dreams, through anxiety, through emotional numbness, and through an inability to fully attach again. And sometimes the thing that keeps her stuck is hope. The kind of hope that doesn't serve her anymore, the kind that says maybe he'll come back, maybe he'll change. Maybe one day he'll realize what he lost. This quiet hope lingers in the background of her life, like a background app draining all her energy. and she doesn't even realize it's there until she tries to connect with someone new, and it feels like she's betraying the story she never got to finish. She tells herself she's just being cautious, but really she's still holding on to a possibility, and in doing so, she's unavailable for reality. She becomes emotionally married to a fantasy of what could have been, of what should have been, of what never got the chance to be. And fantasies are seductive because they never disappoint you. Reality might, but fantasy stays perfect. So she clings to it, and it becomes a barrier. But there's another reason we don't talk about enough: the fear of being happy again. Yes, fear of happiness, because some women equate happiness with vulnerability. They remember what it felt like the last time they let joy flood their body, the last time they allowed love to open them fully, and how quickly it was taken, the betrayal that followed, the goodbye that came without warning. So now, joy itself feels unsafe. She doesn't want to rise too high because the fall was devastating. Better to stay in the middle, where it's neutral, where it's predictable, where no one can hurt her if she never really lets them in. And this creates a quiet sorrow, the kind of sadness that wears a smile. She may appear fine, functional, charming, but deep down she's living on emotional autopilot, not because she wants to, but because it feels like the only way to survive. And you, the man watching this, you might be wondering, what do I do with this? How do I help her? The answer is, you don't help her move on. You help her feel safe enough to move through, because healing isn't about speed. It's about space. Emotional safety is not created through declarations. It's built in the subtle, in the way you show up consistently, in how you listen without rushing her process, in how you hold her when she's silent, in how you honor her story without trying to rewrite it, in how you understand that her wounds are not a burden, they are evidence that she loved deeply. And sometimes all she really needs is someone who sees her not as broken, but as someone who's been through something meaningful, something that mattered. And if you can meet her there, if you can make space for her emotional reality without trying to rescue or fix it, she will begin to thaw, because women don't move on when they're told to. They move on when they feel like they're no longer at war. When a woman finally begins to feel safe, something remarkable happens. Her body begins to breathe again. The breath she's been holding for years without realizing, the constant state of alertness she's grown used to, where her heart is half open and her smile is half forced, it starts to dissolve. Not all at once, but in soft moments, in pauses where she realizes that maybe this time she isn't being chased by the past. Maybe this time she's being met by someone who's not afraid of her depth, or her mess, or her pain. But let's not romanticize the process. This is not a fairy tale. Healing is rarely elegant. It's clumsy. It's raw. It comes with resistance. One day she's laughing and open. The next she's quiet and withdrawn. And this can be disorienting for the man who's there. But it's important to understand, she's not testing you. She's testing reality. She's asking herself, is this safe? Can I trust this feeling? Or am I being foolish again? Because the last time she let her guard down, someone she loved walked away with pieces she still hasn't gotten back. She can't move on quickly because love for her isn't a transaction. It's an investment of soul. When she gave herself, she gave everything, and now it takes time to believe she won't be punished for that again. You might ask, what makes her finally let go of the past? The answer isn't always love. Sometimes it's exhaustion. She gets tired of waiting for closure. She grows weary of carrying a weight that isn't hers anymore. And in a quiet moment of clarity, not rage, not heartbreak, but stillness, she decides to surrender. Not because she stopped caring, but because holding on is costing her more than letting go ever would. But even in that surrender, there is grief, a different kind of grief, one that says goodbye not just to a person, but to a story she clung to for meaning. And meaning is powerful. It's what gives us the illusion of control. So when she releases the story, she also releases the part of her that needed answers. And that's not easy, because we're taught that healing comes with understanding, but sometimes healing is choosing peace over explanations. Some women can't move on because deep down they still think they were the problem, and so they become obsessed with self-improvement. Not for themselves, but to prove to a ghost that they're finally enough. They think, if I had just been calmer, prettier, less emotional, more independent. And they build an identity around fixing what was never broken to begin with, and in that loop they remain in bondage to a love that didn't see them. You might see her now successful, glowing, admired, but what you don't see is the quiet ache of wondering, why wasn't I enough when I gave everything? And that question haunts her, even if she never says it out loud, even if she pretends it doesn't matter. It does, but here's the thing, the moment she realizes she wasn't the problem, the moment she sees that she showed up with all her heart, all her softness, all her fire, and that someone simply didn't know how to receive it, that's when everything begins to change. That's when she starts to reclaim her worth, not through performance, but through presence. She stops apologizing for her feelings. She stops shrinking to fit into someone's emotional limitations. She begins to bloom not in spite of what happened, but because she finally made peace with it. And if you are with a woman like that now, know this, your role is not to replace what she lost. Your role is to remind her that love doesn't always mean pain. That stability doesn't mean boredom. That consistency doesn't mean control. You remind her that intimacy can exist without games, that desire can exist without drama, and that real connection doesn't require her to sacrifice her dignity. When a woman sees that, truly sees that, she begins to move on, not from a person, but from a pattern. From a past that told her she had to earn love through suffering. She begins to move differently, speak differently, love differently. She becomes her own closure, and that's where freedom lives, in the unlearning, in the remembering of who she was before she was taught to doubt herself, in the sacred return to her own rhythm, her own pace, her own desires. So if you're watching this and you recognize her in these words, honor her. Not with grand gestures, but with real presence. And if you are her, if these words feel like home, then let this be your invitation to stop chasing clarity from people who gave you confusion, to stop searching for closure from those who didn't even know how to open. You don't need a perfect ending. You need a new beginning, and maybe, just maybe, that beginning starts with you choosing yourself. There's a quiet moment in every woman's journey where something shifts, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. She stops waiting for the apology that never came. She stops watching his stories, rereading old messages, analyzing every word like it still holds a key to her freedom. She stops pretending she's fine, and at the same time she stops performing sadness. It's not that she suddenly forgets, she just stops needing the past to understand her worth. The fog clears, the obsession fades, and in that soft, steady silence, she begins to come home to herself. This moment isn't born of logic. It doesn't arrive on a schedule. It doesn't respond to timelines or advice from friends who said, "You just need to move on." No. This kind of healing is instinctual. It lives in the bones. It emerges when her spirit, tired of holding sorrow like a secret, decides it's time to breathe again. And often she does this alone, not because she wants to, but because that's how women have survived for generations. Carrying grief in silence, holding back emotion so they aren't labeled too much, suppressing rage so they won't be seen as dramatic. Women have learned how to mourn without making a sound, and that's what makes it so difficult to see when they're still hurting. Because they've become so good at hiding it, but just because she's quiet doesn't mean she's healed. And just because she's not talking about it doesn't mean she's over it. Sometimes the deepest wounds are the ones that are hardest to name, the ones that feel too personal, too tender, too sacred to bring into language. That's why it matters deeply for men to start understanding these hidden layers. Not to fix her, not to be the hero, but to create a space where she doesn't have to hide anymore, where her sadness isn't too much, where her fear isn't brushed off, where her heart doesn't have to audition to be loved. Because when a woman feels safe, truly safe, something ancient inside her relaxes. She lets herself soften, she stops bracing for impact, she allows joy to stay a little longer, and she starts to dream again, not of rescuers, but of a life where she is fully alive. Fully expressed, fully chosen. So much of why a woman can't move on isn't about the relationship at all. It's about how she was never given space to process, to rage, to cry, to feel all the messy, beautiful, terrifying things that come with heartbreak. She was told to keep it together, to glow up, to show him what he missed. But deep healing doesn't happen in revenge. It happens in return to the body, to the truth, to the quiet knowing that she was never hard to love, just with the wrong person. And here's the part we don't often say aloud. Some women stay stuck because a piece of them still wants justice. Not revenge, not punishment, just acknowledgement, to be told, yes, what you felt was real, what we had mattered, and I see how I failed to show up. But most never get that. So they learn to live without it. They become their own witnesses. They rewrite the ending, not by changing the past, but by changing the way they carry it. This is where transformation lives, not in forgetting, but in remembering differently. And if you're still watching this, you might be wondering where all this leaves you. Maybe you're the man who broke her, even if you didn't mean to. Or maybe you're the man trying to love her now, wondering why it still feels like someone else lives in her heart. Or maybe you're the woman who needed these words more than you realized. Wherever you find yourself, just know this: moving on isn't a single decision. It's a series of quiet revolutions inside the heart. It's the courage to feel the thing you've avoided, the grace to forgive what can't be changed, the strength to live without needing answers, and the willingness to begin again even when you're scared. Some days you'll fall back, you'll miss the comfort of the familiar, even if it hurt you. You'll remember the good moments and question everything. That's normal. Healing isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. But each time you return to the pain, you do so with more wisdom, more awareness, more self-respect, until one day you look back and it no longer holds you, you carry it. But it doesn't carry you, and that's when you know you've moved on, not because you forgot, but because you finally chose yourself. So to every woman who's still stuck between memories and healing, I see you, and you don't have to rush. You don't have to fake it, you don't have to be strong today, you just have to be honest. And to every man trying to understand her, don't underestimate the power of presence, not words, not promises, presence. She'll feel it in your eyes, in your stillness, in your patience. That's where safety grows. That's where trust is born again. And to all of us, let's remember, we don't move on by erasing what was. We move on by embracing who we've become. If this message touched you, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the thing that sets us free is realizing we were never alone. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the Intimacy Lab, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. You never know whose heart it might reach. Here's to love that heals. Here's to choosing yourself again. And here's to finally moving on in the most sacred way possible, with truth, with softness, and with power.